Good morning. Good morning, FB land. I'm streaming on TikTok also, so there are going to be some words that I'm not going to say because I don't want there to be any kind of restrictions put on me. So I do have two lives going right now, but it's Sunday morning. It's a beautiful day. My name is Becky. I'm in Northern Michigan. This is my beautiful friend Rachel, and I've asked Rachel. I'm actually going to take a minute and say how blessed I am that Rachel was able to spend a few minutes of her time with us because she's a busy, busy woman. And Rachel, and I know how I know how long I've been trying to get you on one of these lives, and so I appreciate you taking some time with us this morning. And Rachel is a hospice nurse, and like I was just telling the people over on TikTok that she has the experience as a hospice nurse where she's gone in and she's helped the elderly deal with some memory care issues, and she's seen in her own mom. And she just is going to kind of share her experience with what we believe, and research shows that the standard American diet, how it's kind of failing us at all ages. But because of her experience in the elderly genre, I'm going to have her just kind of share her experience, Rachel. So if you would, and on TikTok, I'm going to turn the camera around so they can kind of see her as well. Would you just kind of share not only your just kind of share. So let's start with your story. Where were you health wise? If you'd like to kind of share your mom's story, and that can kind of lead into then your experience in hospice care and what you're seeing today.
Sure. I just want to clarify. I am not a hospice nurse presently, but I was a hospice nurse for 7.5 years.
Okay.
So just in case somebody's out there, especially a former coworker,
Oh,
but I mean, I did see a lot through hospice. I first want to say thank you, Becky, for inviting me. I always love doing lives with you, and I think we both had pretty impactful journeys with this
hi, Mark.
lifestyle change.
Yes.
Can
Yes.
so
Absolutely.
I mean, really for me, there was kind of two parts to my story. And, I was talking to Diane Stetler not long ago, and we call them God winks. There have been so many God wink moments that have kind of led me to where I am today. And so it started back in 2024. My husband had to be put on some medication for his blood pressure. And being a previous hospice nurse, I kind of know these chronic progressive diseases, right? If you don't do something about it, they will continue to
Yeah.
worsen. And so we kind of had this heart to heart. Like, I'm in my mid 50s. He just turned 60. Well, I should say I'm more like in my late 50s. But um, we had this heart to heart that, we got to get our act together. So this was 2 years ago, and I had been dealing with elevated blood glucose probably 10 to 15 years. And we both had cholesterol issues, like many of us do. And I just happened to be on TikTok one day and saw Diane, and she changed my life in ways that I could have never even imagined in that moment. And so I was totally skeptic and really no expectations. I've tried all the things. Nothing ever works, right? I mean, or at least it never sustained. And so I thought, I was kind of interested in the way that this protocol worked. It sounded different. And it came with a 90-day money back guarantee. And I thought, I have not a darn thing to lose by trying this. And so when I said something to my husband that, I think I'm going to try this, he was immediately shut me down. Like, nope, I can't do that. He had the history of chronic migraine headaches and chronic headaches and just did not feel that he could do it. And so I ordered the product, and it had the flavor that I ordered ended up having a milk protein. Well, I mean, 4 years prior to that, I had been, or I should say, at that time, was it 4 years? Yeah, I guess it was 4 years prior. I had been dealing with a lot of inflammation, chronic hives, brain fog, fatigue, joint pain, all the things. And so I never thought that this would help with that. That was not even on my radar. But I ordered a flavor, not thinking that there would be a milk protein in it. And so when it came, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's no way that I can do this because I'm now allergic to red meat. I think I have alpha gal, and I'm really sensitive to dairy. And so again, that was kind of my first God wink, right? So I get this, and I called the company and explained what happened, and they are such a stand-up company. My first experience with them is, well, if you can pass that on to somebody else, we will send you a one-time replacement. And so they sent me lemon flavor. And so I said to my husband, well, this is your opportunity if you want to try it. So skeptic, he's like, whatever. I think he just did it just to make me be quiet. But in the first week of using it, I mean, you know what happened, Becky, because you had the same experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Significant decrease in headaches, which none of us
Yep.
were expecting.
Right.
And then again, I really didn't have expectations. I just kind of was just like, I'll just see what happens. And so 3 weeks in, I'm like, I'm not having restless leg. And my leg cramps have improved,
Same.
which I
Yep.
know that's
Same.
because you had
Yep.
the same experience.
Yeah.
And you
Absolutely.
probably like me were not expecting that to happen either. It just like,
No.
oh, so it could have stopped week one. I don't know. I just wasn't even anticipating that to happen. But 3 weeks in, I'm like,
With my restless leg syndrome, because I had suffered with daily headaches. I mean, every single day. I don't know over the years how many ibuprofen or acetaminophen or naproxen. I don't know how many of these headache pain relieving medications that I've had. It's scary to me to think of how damaged my liver may be because of it, honestly. That was my focus, and I would have migraines at least once a month, sometimes more than that, and so I didn't know about the migraines yet, but within my first few weeks, I'm like, "The headache's gone," but it wasn't until down the road, maybe, oh my gosh, I don't even know, 4 or 5 months, maybe even as late as 6 months, somebody mentioned restless leg syndrome, and it was one of those ones that was just like that was a light bulb moment for me. "Wait a minute. That's
right,
right." I haven't even it didn't even dawn on me because to me it was just couldn't get comfortable in bed, had some restless leg syndrome, brushed it off because there was nothing I was gonna end up doing about it. I knew that, just gonna have to live with it, try to sleep on my side, try to be comfortable.
right.
So for me, it wasn't until weeks or months down the line, I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're right. That too." Like, add that to the list. So sorry to interrupt, but mine was
No,
yeah, but down the line, but it was one of those, yeah, absolutely.
because
Sorry, keep
again,
going.
no, no apology. I mean, and I told that's exactly how it was even for me, like with my hot flashes. I was talking with somebody like 6 months later,
Yeah.
and they mentioned something. I'm like, I don't think I've had one since I started this. I mean, so same kind of thing. I don't know when these things, because I wasn't expecting
Yeah.
that to happen either. But my husband, like you, noticed the headaches right away because he would
Mm,
go to bed with a headache, wake up with a
yep.
headache. That man should have had stock in those
Same.
medications because, like you, I mean, and his whole life it was like that. So I think that's why you guys notice that right away,
Yeah.
because I mean, when you're dealing with those chronic, that's that's terrible.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, so my husband ends up deciding, all right, I'm seeing some changes too. This isn't like I thought it was going to be, kind of opened his mind up a little bit. So we started using this protocol and we were feeling incredible. Like it's kind of like, here we are. I'm trying to think here. I was 54 years old when I started. Almost 55. And he's 3 years older, so he would have been about 57. And we kind of just thought the way we were feeling is just normal parts of aging, right? And we're kind of like, man, we're feeling better. We have more energy. After dinner, I would sit on the couch and fall asleep just about every night. I'm up till 10 o'clock at night and going to bed, no problem, but just not feeling that tiredness all the time. Did you experience that too?
Yeah, absolutely. And at the time, so when I first started the system, let me see. I was a waitress in a restaurant. And at the time, I was thinking, I'm 51, 51, and working with a bunch of 20-year-old girls who could run circles around me. And here I am taking a notebook to every single table, write down every single thing that they would say. And within 2 weeks, Rachel, I was kind of testing myself. Like, I feel like the brain, I feel like I physically felt it lifting almost.
Yeah.
Um, and so after a couple months, I'm like, I'm gonna test myself. And so I would write down everything at the table, and I would go to the computer and I would set it down, or I'd hold it against me and I type in everything that I could remember. And then I would like, I'd be like, okay, and then, yeah. And then by 3 months, so it comes with a 90-day money back guarantee. And so I had chose to give it 90 days. Well, actually,
Mhm.
so prior to that, so I'm a cancer survivor, uterine cancer, 4 years prior to me finding the system. And so I kind of knew that I was going to do it for life, but I wanted to see what the first 90 days was going to bring. And at that point in time, like, I had slimmed down at work because my regular customers would be like, where's Becky going? Because you're standing right here, but you're not the whole person. And
Yep.
I wasn't using my notebook. I would still take it just in case, because, in my head, it's a elderly thing. It's an aging thing. Welcome to your 50s. But I was starting to run circles around the 20-year-old girls. I had more energy than the 20-year-old girls. And I'm thinking, I haven't changed anything. I honestly didn't even change what I was eating. I was eating less because
Same.
this would, like, I realized that I just wasn't craving. And I worked in a restaurant. Before this, Rachel, I would like take food out of the kitchen window. I'm like, oh, that smells good. I know what I'm having for lunch later, right? Or you just get these smells. And even if I'm not hungry, it just smells so good. And then it got to the point where I'm like, yeah, it looks good. It even smells good, but I'm not craving it, carrying it to the table like I was before. And so, yeah, it's been a godsend here in this house too.
Yeah, and it's great. I feel the same way. And for me, the same thing. I've never had anything. It just kind of felt like it melted away. And I have never had anything that I've been able to sustain. Here I am almost 2.5 years later and completely changed my life, my husband's life, and my mother's life, and so
Yeah.
many other people.
Yeah. Talk
So
about your mom.
yeah, my mom is pretty incredible. And let me tell you, had this not come across my world 2 months prior, I don't know where we would be today. I'll be honest, I don't even know if she would be here today because
Mm,
it has given me a tool to advocate for her. And I know it gave her life back. I just know it did because she changed her lifestyle in
yeah.
simple, sustainable ways. We were actually just talking about this the other day. She had an appointment with her doctor, and she's just like, I can't tell you how grateful I am that this happened. She goes, Rachel, I don't know if I would be here today if
Mm,
this hadn't crossed my path. So, as I said, we started May 2024. And I really, again, only a couple months in, we didn't know what to expect with this protocol. I didn't have real big expectations with it just because I had no idea. And
yeah.
so July 1st comes around and my mom has a stroke. And so the first stroke was on the right side of her brain. It really was very minimal as far as she had a little bit of a slurred speech, teeny little, and I'm talking, it was so tiny. You had to really look
But
in
for it.
her on the left side of her mouth. I mean, it was so small, barely anything other than the slurred speech. My mom had no, um, like, no loss of strength or mobility on one side or anything like that. So while we were in the emergency room, she says, I think when I get out of here, I'm going to start that stuff you and Ed are doing. Because she'd already seen in 2 months that we were
Yeah.
feeling better.
Yeah.
And
She
so,
knew.
oh, yeah. And I said, I think that's a really good idea, Mom. So this was July 1st, 4th of July. They're giving her medication to lower her BP. And within a half hour, 45 minutes, she has another stroke. And this one was significant.
Mm,
So this one affected the left side of her brain, really affected her speech, her ability, I mean, to communicate anything. It was bad. And I didn't know what we were dealing with at that point because this changed everything for my mom. That first stroke, she probably would have been able to go back home, no problem. This second
not
one,
this one.
nope, not this one. You're right. And so they did an MRI on the 5th, said, yeah, she did have a stroke on the left side of her brain. And like I said, my mom couldn't even speak in a sentence, maybe a word here and there. Sometimes it was completely nonsensical, didn't know her name. I mean, it was bad.
Mm.
So I go in there on my 55th birthday, that Saturday, July 6th, and as soon as I look at my mom, I don't know how she got out the word help, but she was able to say to
Oh,
me, help. And I looked at her and I'm like, she had another stroke last night. I knew after they gave her the medicine after I left, she had another stroke. So I went and got the doctor and they did another MRI, confirmed, yes, she had another one on that left side. And we were even in worse shape at that point. I made them move her to another hospital. They didn't really want to do it, but I'm like, either you do it or I will move her on my own because I just felt like I couldn't take any more chances. We were in worse
Yeah.
shape
Yeah. Yeah.
than when we got there. So once we got down to the main downtown hospital, we did not have any more issues. They started therapy, but yeah, I mean, nothing made sense with her. And so at that point, she had to come back and live with me after she got out. I did not think my mom would ever be able to go home, to be honest. I figured she would be with me till the end of her life because of, the effects of this.
Yeah.
So we followed up with the doctor, as you do. They had put my mom on a statin as a stroke protocol. And so we followed up with the doctor. And one of the first things the doctor says to my mom is she wants to put her on a medication for type 2 diabetes. And the language she uses, I love my mom's doctor. She's absolutely amazing. So don't think
Yeah.
that there's
Yeah. Yeah.
anything bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the medical community in general.
Yes.
This is how they approach it. And so yeah, right. And so my mom was told, you have type 2 diabetes and you have a chronic and progressive disease, and I want to put you on this medication. And I took the protocol stuff with me because, and I actually took, yep, it's in
It's
there.
not chronic and progressive, you guys. It's dietary. It's not chronic and
Totally.
progressive. Pick up the book and read it. Sorry, Rachel.
No, you're fine. And I literally said to the doctor, type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle disease. If you
Yep.
don't do anything, it becomes chronic and progressive.
That's
And
right. That's
she
right.
didn't disagree with me. And
Mhm.
I took the packets with me and I said, we just started on this lifestyle change. Give my mom 90 days. Let's recheck her labs and let's have a conversation. And she was totally cool with it. It is in the PDR
Yep.
.net. And so I told her you can look this stuff up. I took everything. No idea of the advocacy tool that was laid before me in that moment because I really, again, had no idea what would happen in 2.5 months or where we would be. But since she was living here with us, we were all doing the protocol together. Simple, not really much of a change. Like you said, I did not really change my diet that much. And the
Yeah.
things that I ate, I just changed the timing of when I ate
Yes.
them. And I
Yep.
kind of chunked my meals versus snacking all day long like I'd done all my life. That was really the only change I made and using this stuff. And 2.5 months later, we go and get my mom's labs. And I mean, literally, we were in tears. We could not believe the results that she had. So her A1C dropped to being a border of a pre-diabetic when she was type 2 diabetic before. So she was right on the cusp of not even being in that
Not in
range.
range at all. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
and today she's in the normal range completely. Never needed the
And
medicine.
then how long, Rachel? And how,
Two
what
and
time
a
frame?
2.5 months. Wasn't even
Wow.
3 months. I know.
Wow.
And so at that point, when we saw that, the doctor was like over the moon. She was so excited. But she was just going to, keep going the way it was. And I said, I looked at my mom's lipid panel numbers. And the one that really stood out to me, there was two of them. Her cholesterol had dropped quite a bit. And so your body needs cholesterol, and especially
Yes.
for somebody who's healing. I've done a lot of research. There is a great book out there called The Big Fat Surprise and The Big
That's a great book.
Cholesterol. Oh, it's a great book. And I think the other one was something about cholesterol myth or something. I can't remember the name of it, but any rate. So when I saw my mom's cholesterol level in July, it was 209. And 2.5 months later, it was 81. And I'm like,
Wow.
man, I mean, so again, they put her on a statin as part of her stroke protocol. So between that and this protocol, it brought this down. I felt lower than it should be.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is a woman who's had 3 traumatic brain injuries. Her brain needs cholesterol to help her heal, from what I
Yes.
have read, right?
Yes.
And so I just felt like that was my first red flag. But the second red flag was her LDL. And it went from 137 down to 20. 20 is way too
Too
low.
low.
And I
Yeah.
have read increased risk of mortality with that low of one. And so I just said to the doctor at that point, I said, but I think we need to do something about the statin. And the doctor says, oh, no, 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 that's part of her stroke protocol. We can't do that. And I said, look, you can clearly see she has made a lifestyle change. I said, just do me a favor. We're going to go off it. Check her again in 90 days. Let's just have another conversation. So, again, giving me a tool to advocate for my mom and work with the
Yeah.
doctor. It wasn't
Yeah.
like we were just going rogue. I mean, if the
Right.
numbers had been off, clearly we would have had that
All right.
conversation.
Right.
But I mean, I honestly didn't know what would happen. You know what I mean? So we followed up again in December, and guess who's still off it to this day? So I know. But even better than that, as she did her therapy, I mean, she had occupational speech, physical
Right. Right.
therapy, and she got stronger. And I really think the protocol gave her energy back. Like she had energy, she was feeling better. She is the smallest she's been since the 1980s right now, which is incredible. She never thought
Yeah.
she would be like that.
Yeah.
And in November, she was able to move back home, which, I mean, I'm just so proud of her and her journey and her taking her health. Like, she had been unwell for many, many years. I mean, type 2 diabetes, I bet. Probably at least 20 years. I don't know exactly how long, but I mean, I kind of let my mom do her own thing until all that happened. But I mean, you're talking 20, 30 years of living that kind of life makes a simple change. And even in her 70s has improved that much. So it has been life changing for us. I mean, completely. And then for me, like I was talking about back in 2020, I was having the chronic hives, brain fog, fatigue, joint pain, all of that stuff. I would say like last November, I kind of was like, I'm not having flares anymore. I'm not now. If I eat too much sugar or things like that, I'll
Sure.
feel a
Yeah.
little
Of
stiff, and
course.
that's my own
Of
fault. That's
course.
a lifestyle thing. If I'm not doing the things that I should be to take care of myself, right? Why would I expect anything different? But when I stay the course, right? I I just cannot believe that I feel as good as I do. Honestly, probably better than I did 10 years ago. So here I am,
Wow.
57 years old, feeling better than I did when I was 47.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, Rachel, thank you for sharing all of that. So, I want to kind of get into, so if you're joining us over on TikTok, welcome, welcome in. My name is Becky in Northern Michigan. I'm interviewing um I'm interviewing my friend Rachel, who worked in hospice care for 7 years, and no longer does. But she has the experience and she has the knowledge as part of the medical community. And so I asked her to come on here and share her story. So Rachel, incredible story, incredible results with herself, her husband, and her mom, with this system. So I wanted to kind of ask you. I always tell people that, in my opinion, the food is one of the biggest contributing factors to today's chronic and progressive health issues that most people are on medications for today.
Yeah.
So that we can control. Let me add that we can control, right? Because I say, if you really kind of start doing some research into or behind insulin resistance, if you've heard of insulin resistance, great. If you've not, please stay tuned in because you might learn something today. Um, Stress can be a big factor. I'm sure the coming back and finding out after you had left that she had had another stroke, after she had had the medication, you had already left the hospital, coming back the next day probably caused some level of stress. Sometimes there are, what's the statistic of American families today struggling financially? That causes a lot of stress. In fact, I should get the stats one of these days on how, but it's always been a big factor in divorce rates today, our financial
Sure.
struggles. That will cause stress you really can't do anything about. Maybe a sedentary lifestyle, right? I know I'm in Northern Michigan. I mean, we're blessed enough to be around enough big towns that finding a job isn't difficult, but maybe
Right.
that's not possible for a lot of people. Maybe they have to take a desk job because that's all there is, or it pays better. And then you're looking at not getting a lot of exercise, sitting in a chair 9 to 5, maybe going home and sitting in a chair or at the table having dinner. There's just not a lot of action, a lot of movement. So a sedentary lifestyle. I really like to focus on food as one of the biggest factors leading to insulin resistance that we control, right? So we choose what grocery store, what foods we're going to purchase at the grocery store. We choose what kind of drive through that we're going to drive through and get. We choose how to prepare the food at home. So that's one of the biggest factors that we as adults, that's purchasing the food in our home for our family, that we can control. So that's why I like to really focus on that. So two things come to mind, that I really want to kind of maybe help educate others because it was news to me. One of the things that I heard, and I've even heard from educators tell their diabetic patients, have several smaller meals throughout the day because that's going to regulate your blood sugar levels. So I want to kind of target that. And I'd like to have you kind of talk on these two things, if you don't mind, if you would. Just because you were in the hospice care for many years, excuse me, how you think the or the research or your experience, how that leads to dealing with maybe some memory issues, because I worked for 4.5 years in a memory care home. um,
Yeah.
so I saw all sorts of Alzheimer's and dementia, and at the time didn't know did the relation to insulin resistance, right? So one of the food myths that we're going to kind of talk about today is that several smaller meals is better for you versus three large meals. We
Yes.
got to some point in history in this country that snacks were normal. Um, it wasn't when I was growing up because I couldn't have a snack after school. It would ruin my dinner, right?
Right. Right.
And then the other food thing that I want us to kind of talk about, good morning, Brandy, is the fact that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Well, actually, I could actually talk about three things:
Right.
several small meals throughout the day, breakfast being the most important meal of the day, and that grains, whole grains, were the biggest portion of on the food pyramid that we should be consuming on a daily basis. So if you couple that all together, have 7 to 11 servings of whole grains, have breakfast because it's the most important meal of the day, have several smaller meals throughout the day. So kind of talk about those three food myths. I'm going to call them a myth. That's just my personal opinion.
No, I
Talk
agree.
about Yeah, talk about, Rachel, if you would, in your experience, what you find in your research, just how that runs into or maybe leads to, because a lot of times we consider these high blood pressure, high cholesterol, triglycerides, diabetes, the brain fog, the chronic fatigue, the dad bod, or the that spare tire around the middle. Kind of
The
talk about
muffin.
how these what's that?
The muffin. Yeah.
The muffin, the thunder thighs, the bubble butt. I mean, we've got all these names for these different body parts
Right.
that collect body fat, honestly. And so
Right.
kind of talk about how these three food myths lead to over time. And if you want to, if you question anything that we're saying and you want to do some research of your own, Why We Get Sick by Dr. Bickman is an excellent book to pick up and read. He specializes in insulin resistance. He's a research scientist. He has his PhD. He's a professor at Brigham Young. Please pick up that book and read it because that'll open your eyes. And then you can hear it from somebody who's more qualified than myself for sure, and even Rachel. So
Oh,
pick
yeah.
up that book. But Rachel, in your experience, just kind of talk about how those three food myths leads to insulin resistance. Would you please?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was kind of a series of things that kind of happened. So I just first want to say, as a nurse, I was never taught about insulin resistance in nursing school. I was taught
Interesting.
about metabolic syndrome. And so when I heard about insulin resistance on that social media platform that day, I was kind of like, this
Hmm.
makes sense. When I saw, I call it the circle of insulin resistance. When you see the picture, has all of these different disease processes, and in the center is the root, which is insulin resistance. Each one of the things outside of it are treated like their own individual issue. in the
Yes.
medical community. They are not looked at like they are all connected. And so when you read that book by Dr. Bickman that you just shared, How We Get Sick or Why We Get Sick, I think it's Why We Get Sick.
Yeah.
It
Why we get sick.
that is a phenomenal book and it opened my eyes. Easy read, but when you start seeing the connection with everything, it just makes it a bigger picture.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
I was taught to 6 meals a day keeps your metabolism going, right? If you're not eating 6 meals a day,
Yes.
your metabolism's not going to keep going. I will never ever tell somebody that again. Never.
Mm.
Especially what I have seen using this system and how it has changed so many lives. Clearly, the message has been eat, eat, eat. They have created this system, right? So it really kind of started back in the 70s. And I know McGovern Committee is what it was back in 77. And that's when our, how do I want to word this? I don't want to flag anything. Um, the
I don't think
powers
you
that
will on
be,
Facebook. I don't think you
okay,
will as much on Facebook.
okay. The powers that be will were getting involved in the food pyramid and our dietary guidelines. That was the first time they'd ever done that back in the 70s, and it actually took place in the 1980s. And so, like we see today, a lot of influence from big companies. And that's kind of what set this whole thing up. And actually, in that committee's notes, one of the things that they wanted to do was increase our carb consumption by, don't quote me on the exact number, but it was like over 50%. It was a
Mm.
ridiculous amount. I want to say like up to 60%. I just don't remember the exact number right now. So don't quote me on that. Look it up if you're interested. But I mean, it was a ridiculous number. So they wanted to increase our carbs, but they wanted to reduce our sugar intake. Well, carbs convert to sugars when they're metabolized. So that whole thing did not make any sense, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where this pyramid was kind of formed from.
Mhm.
And so as a child growing up, just like you, Becky, we were brought up on the grains were a big portion of our meals. And that's what most of us ate. So the generation that we're in right now, this is why we're seeing this. But the thing that I'm seeing as a nurse and even hearing from other people that have talked to me is we are now seeing this in our younger population. This has been the big fear for me. I literally had a woman reach out to me, 16-year-old daughter has a fatty liver. 16-year-old fatty liver.
I heard
So,
of a 10-year-old in Ohio in an
well,
Amish family, 10 year
well,
old
and
with
I
fatty liver
I
disease.
think the thing is a lot of people aren't getting checked, so they don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I didn't even know I had issues with my cholesterol until I was in my late 30s. That could have happened in my 20s. I have no idea. But
Yeah.
people aren't really getting checked then unless something signals them to get it checked, right?
Yeah.
And so we are seeing, I really think as time moves forward, we are in such a fast paced society that people are not making home cooked meals. Everybody's fast, right? Grab whatever you can quick. They grab whether it's a pre-processed bar that you're eating, right? To snack on quick, whether
Yeah.
you're driving through a drive-through. And I can tell you back in the day when my kids were in sports, I was guilty of that. I mean, I didn't know any better. That's
Yeah. Of course.
you're in that motion, but they have really created the system. And I think that the thing that really hits me, and I don't know about you, but it's like they created the problem and they created the solution. That, well, it's not really a solution, but the fix, right? The quick
Yeah.
fix.
A band-aid. These, if you realize, and I'm not slamming all of these. I'm not. I
No,
think that they're
no.
overused. I think that we're being over medicated. I think that there's a time and a place for them, but I want people to understand too. So I'm glad that you kind of mentioned that up. And these help you manage your symptoms. So if you're somebody with blood pressure, we're going to control your blood pressure. We're going to manage those numbers. So you're going to be on this for the rest of your life. You're a diabetic. We're going to help you manage your blood sugar levels. We don't want to get too high. We don't want to get too low. We're going to manage your numbers with something like this. What if, like Rachel is saying, the reason why we have these symptoms that we need a band-aid for is because of a deeper rooted problem. And that problem is insulin resistance, because if you eliminate the root cause, the symptoms go away. Now,
or
chances are,
improve.
or
Yeah,
improve, or
right.
thank you, and chances are there are some um examples, or maybe that's not the right word. There are some instances that insulin resistance is reversed and improved, and the symptoms are still there. So we know that perhaps in this case, it's not. But why not try to eliminate when you can stop and think that on a global, no, sorry, on a countrywide scale, in this country, 93% of us are metabolically unhealthy. And so we're talking about this today because we feel like the chronic and progressive diseases are just, and Rachel, you can kind of even talk to that too. I didn't mean to interrupt and take over
No,
your what you were
no,
talking about,
you're
but
fine.
you had mentioned a minute ago that one of your fears was when it gets so bad that it's starting to affect the children now, right? 16 years old, 10 years old, 10-year olds with fatty liver. If this was the answer, and I'm not saying that it's not, or that it's wrong, please don't misinterpret what I'm saying, but if it was the answer, how come we aren't seeing a decrease or a decline in these statistics? Because year after year, you can stack them up against each other, almost anything across the board, the statistics continually rise.
Well, and I just want to piggyback on that a little bit. I think as a medical professional, the thing that really upsets me is that they are going to that automatically without
Yeah,
even anymore. They're not even teaching lifestyle stuff. It's like, we'll just put you on this. And I think for me, the big message that I want to get out there is I didn't know there was another way. I as a medical professional did not know, even though sure they talk about lifestyle, but I don't think people really understand how easy it is to make simple lifestyle changes. You hand them a book, and that's their information, that's their education. I don't feel like there's enough. Handing a pill is not going to fix anything. It puts a
right.
Band-Aid on it. You will continue, unless you make a lifestyle change, to get chronic and progressive. There will be more things added onto your list of issues if you
Yes,
don't make a lifestyle change. And so, for
yes,
example, when me and Ed had that conversation back in May of 2024, we each had two things that were truly metabolic issues, right? Him with his blood pressure and cholesterol, me with my blood sugar and my cholesterol. And it impacts each of us differently depending on how the insulin is being stored in your body. I mean, that's
correct.
why not all of us have the same symptoms. And this is why there is such a wide variety of things that show up. But when you look at my mom being 20 years older than me, right? Then we're dealing with diabetes, high blood pressure,
Mhm.
fatty liver, kidney disease, obesity at that point.
Mhm.
And the list would have continued to go on, right? And this is why the people that end up in hospice, some of them, I don't want to say everybody's journey is different, but especially with these heart failure ones, right? The diabetes that lead into amputations and infections and all of these things. Type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle disease, and you can improve your health. And I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight. And I think that's the other thing that's frustrating. And I really feel like I need to talk about that too, because these
Please.
these take years for most of us to happen, or at least in our population. These aren't things that we probably had when we were 10, 20 years old, because our lifestyle was different back then. Like you said, Becky, we didn't snack before dinner to ruin your dinner. We were outside running around playing all day long. You know
Right,
what I mean? It wasn't
right.
like we were sitting around playing games in the house. And I mean, we were out in the neighborhood riding our bikes, and it was a different generation than today's generation. And so I this did not happen overnight. This happened over several decades for most of us. And I can't tell you how many times people will be like, well, it's been 30 days. Why? And I'm like,
Well, yeah,
how can you expect something to improve, or like you said, in some places we see it being reversed?
yeah.
um and I would never claim that for anybody, but I'm saying depending on you and your body and what you're willing to do, you can definitely improve your health. There's no doubt about that. I have seen that time and time again.
Same.
But it didn't happen overnight. And like I said,
Yes.
with my inflammation, I had been using this lifestyle for a year and a half didn't happen overnight. I never expected it to happen. But
Right.
boy, when you start taking care of yourself metabolically, everything, your body has its own wisdom, and it just kind of it goes back to where it should be, right? It balances out. It creates a homeostasis, as they call it. Everything's
Yes.
kind of in balance again.
Yeah. And
It
so that even kind of, I'm sorry, that even
no,
kind of, uh, it's two things. You said something about playing outside, and I just had a conversation not that long ago with my brother about marbles. And if I was to show a kid a marble today, they would wonder what that is. I'm like, what? You used to bring a bag of marbles and you would have these marble wars. You'd have a hole in your, you had to flick these marbles and oh my
right?
gosh. But anyway, but that's what it made me think of. So, and then shoot, the other thing I wanted to kind of talk about too, with our blood sugar regulation and being older, could you just kind of talk about, I'm going to step over here for, I just want to grab something just to kind of show the viewers. Will you kind of talk about how that can help regulate hormones as well?
Sure.
Because we're talking about, I mean, when you talk about insulin resistance, insulin is a hormone. Before my health scare, before my cancer, if somebody said something to me about my insulin, before that point, what's your insulin? How's your insulin looking? What's your insulin fasting? Your all of these.
Or
What's your fasting glucose? What's your glucose? Like all of these terms would have gone in one ear and out the other because to me they didn't affect me. I wasn't a diabetic. I didn't need insulin. I didn't realize it was a hormone. I mean, that's how much I probably didn't pay in school or pay attention in school. Insulin didn't affect me. Glucose didn't affect me. All of these terms that people that I'm starting to learn now about at the time didn't affect me, realizing now how much it actually did because this issue led to my prediabetes, the inflammation, the restless leg syndrome, the daily headaches, the monthly migraines, and probably just my opinion, I'm going to throw cancer in there too because cancer is linked to being insulin resistant. And not only that, but I also have positive receptor cells. I can't have estrogen. So when you start talking about how insulin with the large role that insulin plays inside of a body, whether you're seeing symptoms right now or not, it's it's a huge it's very very important. And so we have these talks to bring awareness to people on this. So would you kind of talk a little bit about how this regulates hormones as well?
yeah. And so I just want to kind of first say with insulin as a nurse, even though I went through anatomy and physiology and all of that, as a nurse, when prior to all of this, whenever I heard the word insulin, I always just thought about a type 2 diabetic or a type
Yeah.
1 diabetic needing it, right, to manage their blood glucose. That was not I, my brain did not go to your pancreas secretes insulin every time you have a blood glucose spike and it manages your own in your own body. Like that was not I it's just weird how we are programmed in a way to automatically go to the medication, right? And
Yes.
so
Yeah.
for me, I never even thought about that whole process. And so it makes sense when you really think about it how insulin, like you said, is a hormone. It's secreted from our pancreas. And this is why this is a metabolic problem because when insulin is not getting into the allowing the transported glucose into the cell like it should, right? The hormone is not doing its job properly because the cell is resistant to it. So if it's resistant to insulin, why wouldn't it be resistant to other hormones, right? And so you realize that it's a much bigger problem. And again, depending on where you're having the issues, is where it's going to show up for you. It is crazy how you fix the cell. And this is why we're getting more energy, right? I mean, the cell uses two primary forms of energy. Most of us are on the sugar burner, right? Because we're eating all day long. We don't give our body a break to tap into the ketones and fat. And
Right.
so we don't even ever even think of that unless you're somebody that's done keto or something like that. That's not even something anybody thinks about. But I can tell you, I had done keto back in 2019. I felt incredible brain clarity. I felt so
Yeah.
much better. And when you look at the research, I mean, your brain loves it, your heart loves it. It is, to me, I absolutely love being in that state. I'm in that state right now as we speak. It feels amazing. But most of us don't even allow our body to get to that point. We are sugar burner through and through, and we are burning ourselves out. When that energy, like that glucose can't get into the cell, that's what fuels the cell for energy. So no
Yeah.
wonder we're all walking around tired and falling asleep in the afternoon or after we eat, right? That's when a
After a
lot of
meal.
people.
Yeah.
So my
Yep.
husband on a weekend, I mean, used to be famous for going in there and taking a nap in the afternoon, right? And me after dinner, same thing, falling asleep on the couch. That does not happen in my household. I mean, maybe occasionally if we were tired from running around or doing extra stuff throughout the week, but
Yeah.
it's not the norm anymore like
Right.
it
Right.
used to be.
Right. So, so you're talking about glucose getting into the cell, and I kind of want to talk about that a little bit. Uh, so we're told that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And so if you stop and think about, Rachel mentioned that all carbs metabolize and convert to sugar, 100% glucose. So that's sugar in your bloodstream. And every single time that happens, unless you're a type 1 diabetic, your pancreas, like she was just explaining, is going to secrete the hormone insulin because it has a job to do. It's got to take the sugar out of your bloodstream and store it in your cells. So when we're told to eat breakfast first thing in the morning, if you had dinner last night at 7, let's say 7 o'clock, it's kind of late for us in our household, but a lot of American families eat dinner that late. Let's say you do 7 o'clock and then you're done eating. If you're an average American adult, you probably have a bedtime snack also. So let's say 9 or 10 o'clock. Once you've slept through the night, your body is burning through the sugar, the glucose from that meal, and you wake up first thing in the morning and we want you to eat right away. That should be the best time for you to push the plate away, practice waiting a couple hours, and then start small. Maybe don't eat breakfast as soon as you get up. Maybe don't start breakfast right away. If you're going to do breakfast, and I say this quite often, if you're going to do breakfast, because so many of us have the mindset of I can't skip breakfast. I'll get the jitters. I won't be able to focus. I need that breakfast. I need that kickstart first thing in the morning. We don't realize, because I know I didn't realize, your
Right.
body provides the energy necessary to start. So even just getting up in the morning and waiting an hour, hour and a half to kind of keep pushing that window out, you're going to use the ketones that your body has been holding on to and preserving, that's going to deliver that to your system, like Rachel was saying, and use that for energy. One thing that I did learn recently is that our system, our body, only needs one of these to function properly. 1 teaspoon of glucose in your bloodstream. That's all the sugar that your bloodstream needs for your body to function properly at any time. So if you stop and think about breakfast being the most important meal of the day, what's a common breakfast? I know after my cancer scare, I had almost daily, Rachel, and I hate to, because it was just, you don't know what you don't know. You're naive, you're ignorant, whatever the case may be. I called myself ignorant, not in the sense that we would use it I just didn't know. I thought I was doing what my body needed after my cancer scare. And every single morning, just about, I would either have a bowl of steel cut oats because it's so much better for you. And it is, there's more fiber content, but it's still dumping a ton of sugar in your bloodstream. I would have a bowl of steel cut oats because it's healthier, and then pour in milk and brown sugar and walnuts and raisins and a couple pieces of whole grain toast because it's so much better for you. And not realizing if that was not, that was probably 4 or 5 days a week. That was my breakfast in the morning. If it wasn't that, then it was a smoothie of spinach, cherry concentrate because of the resveratrol. I had done I had done some research after my cancer, and I found out that um, cherry juice, cherry concentrate has something called resveratrol that's supposed to be really, really good for cancer. I'm going to have to get this out of my throat, I guess. And so I would have spinach, cherry concentrate, probably a handful of blueberries, maybe some, I don't even know, and throw it in there and zip that all up in my blender and then just drink that down. And I would have that in the morning. Chia seeds. Um, Not knowing, I was just ignorant to the fact that I was just dumping sugar into my bloodstream,
Huge.
huge bloodstream, but it's
I
healthy
know.
foods. It's oatmeal. That's heart healthy. It's oatmeal. It's whole grain. It's orange juice with my oatmeal. But I got whole grain bread and not white bread. Those are healthy choices.
Right.
And I was just doing more damage than good until I knew better. So, would you just kind of talk about a little bit? We only need 1 teaspoon of this. And if we're having breakfast and a snack and lunch and a snack and dinner and a snack, we're dumping more glucose into our bloodstream than we need. Then insulin has to, and every single time you eat something, you got more insulin into your system. So Rachel, you can kind of talk about like how long we have these, let's say somebody had that oatmeal breakfast like I used to have. Huge blood sugar spike because there might have been a little bit of fiber and fat, maybe the walnuts and the chia seeds in my smoothie and
Oh,
the might have been getting a little bit of fiber and fat in some of
sure.
those choices, but huge blood sugar spike, right? So that's going to, in a couple hours, make my blood sugar crash because it was mostly sugar. How long does insulin work the same way? Can you kind of explain how that works?
So insulin doesn't work the same way. And I just want to add on to that. Like we were in the same boat. Ed every day had a bowl of oatmeal, a little bit of maple syrup on it because maple syrup's better than regular sugar, right? And a half of a banana. No wonder. And a few hours after he ate his breakfast, if he did not eat again, he would get a headache. That would
Yep,
trigger a
yep,
headache for him. And
yep.
so, yeah, because he got this huge glucose spike, then he crashed. And if he didn't eat again, and this is what this sets us up for, that we're doing this roller coaster all day long. But what we don't realize is when we spike, and depending on how big that spike is, that signals our pancreas to release insulin. Insulin, the goal of insulin is it's supposed to go to the cell, unlock the cell to allow the transport of that glucose spike, right? The glucose is supposed to get into the cell to be used for fuel or energy, if you will. But what
Yes.
happens is after years and years of doing this, the insulin is not unlocking the cell. So then what happens is that the body is going to try to get more glucose or more insulin, like it's going to release more because it's trying to drive that into the cell.
Yeah.
So if you are a type 2 diabetic, this is why you are needing to use injectable because if your body is just not able to get it in there. But what happens is the insulin does not drop like the glucose does. The insulin stays high and it takes, I believe, about 4 hours for the insulin to kind of come down a little bit. But usually happens when it's that high in your bloodstream, that's going to signal your liver that we got to do something with this. It's too much insulin in our blood. We're swimming in insulin is what we're
Yeah.
doing. And I also want to say that part of the problem with the medical community is insulin is not the thing we're talking about. We're talking about blood glucose. We're looking at A1Cs. Nobody's
Great
looking
point.
at these fasting insulins. Nobody's
Great point.
talking about the role of insulin. Insulin is the problem.
Yes.
Um, so I think, why isn't that on the standard tests? I don't know. Why isn't that at the forefront of the conversation? I don't know, but it should be. And that
It
is
should be.
that is the root. So insulin, a lot of people don't realize, is a fat storage hormone. It's going to get stored in all kinds of. So, for example, if you had ate your breakfast, right? And you went out and took a walk for a half hour, took a nice walk for a half hour, you would burn some of that off and it would not
Right.
get stored. But most of us don't do that. We drive to work, we sit at a desk, or you know what I mean? We're not using that energy. We're not burning it up. And so it's going to get stored somewhere. So it could be your muscle cells, it could be your liver cells, it could be your fat cells. And so this is why a lot of people end up with those expanding, if you will.
Yep. Yep.
Right? And another thing I want to say, even just on a hormone basis, women, as we start entering perimenopause, menopause age, and our hormone estrogen drops, that even makes us more insulin resistant. So you think about a perimenopause, menopausal woman, and how our body shapes start forming, right? We gain that weight in the midsection. We can't shed it, if you will. That is why, because it just keeps accumulating there. If you don't give your body a break from the insulin, a break from all this storing, right? How can we ever fix the problem?
Yeah. Right.
The other
I like,
problem, oh, yeah, go on ahead.
no, I was just going to say, one of the things that I learned, I need to learn how to mirror my camera when I'm doing these, because I know this looks probably backwards to the viewers. But one of the things that I learned in this book when I was reading this, and it was kind of funny because I first read this section in this book when I was in a airport waiting for the waiting for my plane to show up. I remember thinking about this picture, and I'm thinking to myself, I had just packed. I was getting ready to fly to Las Vegas for a meeting. And this is a picture, if you can't tell, this is a picture of somebody sitting on their suitcase because they overstuffed their suitcase and they can't fit everything in there. So you've got to sit on it to zip that up, right? And if I could, I just want to explain this real quick because this is Dr. Fung explaining in the diabetes code how and actually the title of the book, you guys, says the diabetes code: prevent and reverse type 2 diabetes naturally. So if you're a type 2 diabetic and you want to learn how, pick up the book and read it. He talks about what happens when you have glucose being stored in your cells, right? Insulin affects every single cell in your body, from the top of your head to your tips of your toes. And I don't know that I could say it any better. So I'm actually going to read from Dr. Fung's book real quick. Let me see. Oh, I thought I had it right here. In other words, so essentially you are, oh gosh, I thought it was right here. Go ahead, Rachel. I'm going to see if I can find it because I want to read it,
Okay.
because when I read it, I was just like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. I'm going to find it
Right.
real quick. I wasn't prepared for it and it just come to my
So
mind, so I'm going to find it real quick.
I just want to touch on this picture that's on the screen a little bit, and
Yeah,
it shows the modern diet dilemma. And so we've really talked about how we're snacking and eating frequently all day long. But the other problem that happened is that when you see that apple there, apples come clothed in fiber. That
right.
outer coating on the apple is fiber. Apple juice has no fiber in it at all. It takes 3 apples to make that cup of juice. I could easily drink 3 cups of juice, no problem.
Yeah,
The fiber on that apple, there's no way I'd sit down and eat 3 apples. It's gonna fill me up, and I'm not going to need to eat as much. And so they have removed a lot of the fiber from our food. We are not getting enough fiber in our diet. And that makes us crave food more and eat more all day long. And when you think about these processed foods that we're eating, there's not enough fiber in them. And so that's why when you don't have fiber, you get this huge glucose spike. When you have fiber before it, it's going to change the way that glucose spikes. You're not going to get as big of a spike. You're not going to need as much insulin to cover that meal.
right, right.
Did you find
I
it?
Yeah, I found it. So I
Okay.
was right. I was on the right page. I just didn't realize I had to finish reading it on the next page. So, um, what happens in the body if we do not remove the excess glucose? And then he goes on to say, your doctor may prescribe a medication such as insulin injections, or perhaps a drug called metformin to lower blood glucose. But these drugs do not rid the body of excess glucose. Instead, they simply continue to take the glucose out of the blood and ram it back into your body. When that happens, every cell in the body starts to rot, which is precisely why type 2 diabetes, unlike virtually any other disease, affects every single organ. Your eyes rot, you go blind. Your kidneys rot, you need dialysis. Your heart rots, you get heart attacks and heart failure. Your brain rots, you get Alzheimer's disease. Your liver rots, you get fatty liver disease and cirrhosis. Your legs rot and you get diabetic foot ulcers. Your nerves rot and you get diabetic neuropathy. No part of your body is spared. So, you guys, every single cell in your body is affected by insulin. And this is why Ben Bickman talks about how it can take 10, 15, maybe even sometimes up to 20 years in some people. You are not, uh, you do not have cholesterol or high blood pressure. because it happened overnight. Like Rachel was saying, some people will be like, well, I don't know why I've been on the system for 30 days and ain't nothing changed yet. Give it time, because when this happens, it's taken your body 10, 15, 20 years of storing and cramming glucose in different cells. And it'll get to the point where your fat cells are so full that they literally can't take anymore. Your body will create new fat cells because you need storage room, right? So just like that picture I showed with the suitcase, and you just can't stuff any more clothes in it. If that was me and I needed to take all those clothes, I'd have to go get another suitcase, right? Because I can't fit it all in there. Your body will create new fat cells because it needs a storage space. So when we learn how to stop the modern diet dilemma, we learn how to eat just a couple good meals a day. We learn to cut out the snacking because it's unnecessary. Um, and maybe that's going to be difficult for you. Like Rachel said, her husband Ed would get a headache if he didn't eat every couple of hours. Our body, we're creatures of habit. Our body is so used to that glucose spike every couple of hours that if it doesn't happen, I know exactly what he's talking about. I would get a
Right.
headache too, or people will get the jitters, or they just don't feel well. We're so accustomed to feeding the monster, we don't question what would happen if we stop. Okay. Um, and maybe Ed or myself, it wasn't worth it to me to not eat because I didn't want the headache. I'm just going to eat
Right.
something. I don't care if it's a banana. I don't care if it's an apple. I don't care if it's a granola bar. I'm going to eat something because I don't want the headache. There are tools put in place to help us make that transition naturally without any side effects. Not pharmaceuticals. They're not. They don't need to store them in a little blue box. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit right now. So Rachel, if you don't mind, we're going to kind of transition into how people could utilize this system to learn how to, and maybe we should even talk about before I get to that. Will you just kind of talk about, I do tell people quite often there are 3 macronutrients, 2 of which are essential and 1 of which is non-essential. We use carbs as an energy source because of the glucose, but they're non-essential, honestly. And so when we're talking about going so long, let's say we had dinner, like on this picture, we had dinner at 6 p.m. Let's say we don't snack. Let's say we don't have that fudge bar at 8, we don't have the popcorn at 10. We wake up the next morning and we wait until 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning before we eat again. We've given our body enough time to utilize the fuel from the dinner the night before that we're now creating ketones. We're releasing GLP-1, which is another hormone we haven't really touched on yet. So when we break that fast, would you just kind of talk about why proteins and fats are going to be the most important choices at that time versus something like a oatmeal breakfast like Ed and I would have been typically having?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, protein and fats help sustain you longer. You're not going to feel as hungry. And they also play a role in your glucose spike too. When you start your meal with fiber, protein, and fat, it changes the way your glucose spikes. I mean, and there's lots of other creators out there that I'm on social media that have shown by wearing a continuous glucose monitor what happens with that blood sugar spike when you make simple changes to it, you know. Glucose Goddess, which I know you follow her too.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, just off the top of my head, she shows a glucose or her glucose spike after eating a plain piece of bread, and she gets a pretty big spike into the red. And then she shows by just putting a pat of butter, a healthy fat, right, on that bread, and she stayed in the green. And I don't think people understand just a simple change in that can can change the way your blood glucose spikes. I mean, that's valuable information to somebody who's a type 2
Yeah,
diabetic, especially, right?
absolutely.
But I mean,
Absolutely.
it's simple lifestyle things that we just are not taught and not aware of. So it's going to, number one, lower the glucose spike, but it's also going to sustain you longer. So you're not going to feel as hungry and full. And I can tell you, even when I used to do keto, we used to make this thing called bulletproof coffee, right?
Yep,
And you would put a little bit MCT oil in it, right? A healthy fat, and it helped sustain you through the morning.
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Or
I
butter.
mean, right. Or butter. Yes, I've seen people do that too.
That's how I made my bulletproof. And then somebody also told me, "Oh, if you like butter in your coffee, try a Mexican coffee." And when I researched what that was, it was just some Tabasco. So your coffee, your
Oh,
butter, and Tabasco, and you mix it up, and that was pretty good. Actually, that was pretty good.
but I don't think people realize that. The other thing that I don't think people realize is that we have our own GLP-1 hormone. And just
Yes.
like insulin is a hormone, right, that manages our blood sugar and transports it into the cell for energy, and many, many other functions of insulin. That's just one of its functions. Um, but we also have our own GLP-1 hormone. And I was not aware of that either. It's in our gut. And as we get older, it's not working as well as it used to. Part of the system that we use and the studies that have been shown has chlorogenic acid in it. And that helps increase our GLP-1 by up to 67% naturally, no
Yeah.
side effects. Um, so, what we find is a lot of things out there mimic the hormones that we already have, right?
Yeah.
And there's side effects that come with those kind of things that mimic, right? They're fake hormones, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, this particular drink that she just brought up, that's what I'm drinking right now.
Yep. Me
And
too.
I'm sure that's what you're drinking too. I'm drinking mine hot this morning because it's a little cooler. I'm in
Yeah.
Ohio. It's a little cooler today. And I just, most of the time I drink it on ice this time of year, but I just kind of felt like I wanted something a little cozier today. This helps with my brain clarity. It
Yes.
helps produce more. That was one of the first things I noticed when I started drinking it. It
Right.
gives
Me
me
too.
endurance and energy. It also, I think this is a big player in reducing my inflammation and oxidative stress. And not that it happened overnight. Remember, I told you it took about a year and a half before my flares went away for me personally. I'm not saying that's going to happen for somebody else. I wasn't expecting that. But the inflammation, the anti inflammatory, and the reducing of the oxidative stress that this particular drink promotes in our body gave me back my life in ways I would have never, ever imagined. I started this protocol focused on two simple things: blood sugar, cholesterol. It gave me so much more than that. It way exceeded my expectations. Between that, my mom's journey, my husband's journey, and then just friends and family and people that I've helped along the way. It has beyond exceeded my expectations in ways I could have never ever in a million years even thought.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, and I think you can see the same thing, Becky. I
Yeah.
mean, on your journey.
Yeah. Absolutely. Same thing. Um,
Yeah.
And I was going to say something too. When we were talking about storing fat, one thing that I learned a while ago is that when fat is low, when insulin is low, the fat has to go. So though this isn't a weight loss program, this is not a diet. This is teaching us how to fuel the right way, fuel the right how often, the right way, with tools put in place to make it easier. Can somebody do the exact same thing without being on the feel great system? Absolutely. And if you have the willpower to do so, more power to you, because I would have struggled, right? And so this does just make fasting easier. uh I actually have mine cold, and even in the wintertime, you're probably gonna even in the wintertime I have ice cold. I don't do a whole lot. I have coffee in the morning. Still, I'll put a little bit of heavy whipping cream in it, or butter on occasion. So by the time I've had a cup of coffee, I've had my hot drink first thing in the morning. So then I just go to my Unimate. The one that I do have hot and I'll have as a dessert after a meal is the mint chocolate brownie. It is a decaf. So for somebody that's on the Feel Great system or wants to start the Feel Great system, we do have a mint chocolate brownie one, which is delicious and it whips up real nice. I do add heavy whipping cream to this, and it's kind of like, to me, what it reminds me of, Rachel, is at Christmas time, we'll have hot cocoa, and then put a candy cane in it. And that's what that reminds me of. It tastes, because it's a minty hot chocolate is what so that one I have hot and I love it. Not all the time, but I will drink that one after dinner as my dessert if I'm craving something sweet. because it's decaf, it doesn't give me the jitters. I don't have a hard time sleeping, and it works out wonderful. But we do have, like pictured right here, a lemon. We have a decaf lemon as well. We have a lemon ginger, a raspberry pomegranate, and I still have some left over of the Unamate Fierce. I do like this one. It has a little bit of a kick to it, but we do have several flavors. And then if you would just kind of talk about the fiber for just a minute, and I'll show that screen as well. This is what kind of Rachel was talking about a few minutes ago, just putting a fiber in front of like the glucose goddess putting butter on her bread. It affected the spike of the glucose in her bloodstream. So fiber is very important, and we want to talk about bringing fiber back a little bit. So we do have two flavors of this: natural orange, mixed berry. They did just come out with an apple flavor for now, to a limited group, but that should open up to the public here soon. But we just kind of talk about um, what's the difference? Why is this more beneficial than, say, having a big heaping helping of broccoli and then a huge salad beforehand? Why can't I do that and have the same effect fiber wise? And that would help. Somebody could
Oh,
absolutely do that and not need to do the balance, and it's still going to be beneficial to you. But talk about how beneficial this fiber actually is in our gut and our overall metabolic health system.
so I mean, this fiber contains many different types of fiber, and so that's the beauty of it. If you, it's plant-based, it's a diverse fiber matrix, soluble and insoluble fiber. For you to be able to get that much of a variety in your diet, you would have to eat a lot of different things. Now, yeah, like you said, Becky, I mean, eating vegetables and things like that, great way to get fiber. And I like personally supplementing with fiber, but I just want to share as a nurse. Here's my turn now. Um, as a nurse, I never educated one prediabetes or type 2 diabetic on how they should have fiber before their meal and the role of a glucose spike with fiber first. Was
Wow.
not, I do not ever remember being taught that. I'm not saying they didn't. Maybe they taught me that in nutrition or something. I don't remember that. The only
Yeah.
thing I ever taught anybody about fiber was for bowel health. That is the only thing that I remembered. And right on the CDC website, it says directly on there, and I actually have it copied here. I copied and pasted on a piece of, just copied it off the website. But it says right there, if you have diabetes or prediabetes, fiber is your friend. It helps with blood sugar control and weight
Mhm.
management. And it can also lower your risk of heart disease, a common diabetes complication. As a hospice nurse, heart disease is the number one thing that's taking us out.
Yes.
Why is heart disease still the number one thing when we have done all of the things over the years, right? We've all done the low fat, like that's been recommended. We've done all of these things. Why is it still number one? As a nurse, that is where I keep going back to. I'm like, something clearly is not working properly, right?
Yeah. If
Or
I could,
it would,
I'm gonna change this real quick.
okay,
Uh, there's another study. I changed this to make the blue highlight area a little
yeah,
bit bigger so that people could read it. But that's an excellent source. Go to the CDC website, like Rachel was just saying. It tells you fiber is your friend, especially if you're a diabetic or a pre-diabetic.
yeah,
Because you
yeah,
mentioned heart disease,
yeah,
in that blue highlighted area down here, that was a study done by the Cleveland Clinic, and they studied this fiber right here. Their words, their concluding statement was, such a product, if taken regularly, could reduce cardiovascular risk on a population basis. So now you have the CDC telling us how important fiber is, but the Cleveland Clinic specifically talking about this fiber, telling us it could potentially decrease the need. I'm sorry, reduce cardiovascular risk. Got ahead of myself a little bit. But also, like Rachel's mom was on statins, this could potentially decrease the need or dosage of those statins, those lipid lowering prescription drugs. And so, yeah, fiber is extremely important.
yeah. And my mom clearly demonstrated that just in the 2.5 months of I mean, at that time she was on both, but she's off them both. But I don't think people realize the benefits of fiber. Fiber is going to fill you up so you're not going to want to eat as much. That's important. We are all overeating. I mean,
Yes.
we eat without even thinking
Yes.
about what that's doing to our body. And we're not really taught. I mean, sure, they tell you, they make simple, like blanket statements, but I don't think people truly understand why. When you have fiber before your meal, it changes the way your blood glucose spikes. And there are studies out there. If you look at this, I don't know if you can see the Sydney,
Mhm.
University of Sydney study there, but it shows right on there too, um, what happens when you have fiber before your meal. It makes a difference.
Yeah.
It lowers the spike. The lower the spike, the less insulin that's needed, the less insulin that's swimming in your body, right? The less that's going to be stored. And then we see a lot of these things improve. So people that have issues with like constipation, irritable bowel, diarrhea, those kind of things, we are seeing people gut health improve by using fiber. And our particular fiber that we use that we supplement with, um, like I said, it is insoluble and soluble. It has a prebiotic in it, so it's going to feed that gut. I'm really excited about this new apple flavor that they have. That one does not have any of the vitamins in it. So people that have like MTHFR and things like that, that is going to be a wonderful option for them because I know some people can't always use it when, there's B vitamins and such in certain supplements. Any rate, I know for me, when I first started, I had a lot of bloating with the fiber because my body was not used to getting it.
Yeah.
Now that I've been using this for a while, I could totally do 2 a day, no problem. My gut health has improved significantly. But I know I have a friend, when it says the skin, the reason that it affects your skin is because we have a gut skin connection. There is a gut skin axis, and they are directly connected, just like there is a gut brain
Right.
connection, right? A gut brain axis. And so a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people see improvement. And so I have a friend that's been using this protocol, the system, for a couple of months. She says, I cannot believe she has scalp issues. And she says it has dramatically improved just from using this in
Wow.
I think 2 months she's been on it. I've also heard a lot of people say that their anxiety, depression improve. I'm not saying everybody gets off medication, but I mean, some people do. And again, working with their doctors, I have a friend that was on 4 different antidepressants, worked with her psychiatrist. And I think in about 4.5 months, she was able to get off of everything. She said she can't believe how much better brain clarity she has because I think some of those medications can they come with side effects, right?
Yeah.
But I have other people that are still on them or maybe had worked with their doctor to get a little bit of a reduced dose. Um, I always encourage you to work with your physician. I mean, they should be
Right.
a partner in your care, just like I was with my mom. Like I said, this has given me an amazing tool to work with them, and you can actually see those results in real time. But
Yeah.
fiber is so important for our gut health, for reducing these blood glucose spikes so they're not getting as high. They help us feel fuller. So that means that's going to help with that midsection, not expanding, if you will, the
Yeah.
muffin top, right? And I mean, when you look at the mental health issues that are in this country, why are we not incorporating more fiber in our
Yeah.
diet?
Because
It
it's
just,
been shown that brain cells, your brain cells can become insulin resistant. And
oh,
when that happens,
completely.
just like when your skin cells become insulin resistant, you can have adult acne, skin tags, the discoloration, right? When your liver cells become insulin resistant, you can have fatty liver disease. Even like in his book Cirrhosis, Dr. Fung says when your nerves, so neuropathy is affected as well. There can be some pain to their damage to the nerves, which is where neuropathy comes from. I've even had some people tell me that the pain has subsided and
Oh,
even
yeah,
their nerves have improved. The function of their nerves have improved a little bit. So
sure.
this is why we say every cell can be affected from insulin and insulin resistance. So I think that some of the anxiety, depression that we see today, some of the dementia and Alzheimer's, they're calling Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes.
Yeah.
So I think that when your brain cells are fed glucose so much, we're eating several times a day. We're starting with a huge carb breakfast first thing in the morning. And over time, those cells become insulin resistant. We can see the effect of that in these health issues like the ones I just mentioned.
Absolutely. And I think people just don't realize that there's even a connection
Mm,
to that. You know what I mean? Like I said, insulin is such a big issue. I wanted to
yeah,
touch on the fatty liver thing real quick. So
sure.
at the stage of fatty liver, I mean, we're seeing it's called non-alcoholic fatty liver, right?
Right.
We are seeing kids with this now. Um, that's crazy when you think
Yeah.
about it. But the thing I really want to hit home about that is fatty liver can be improved, reduced, right?
Yes.
Reversed. When
Yes.
you get to cirrhosis, not reversible. Once you have cirrhosis, that is permanent damage. You do not want to wait to get to that point. And this is, I think this is the hospice nurse of me that, like, uh,
Do
if
something
there,
now.
yes,
Yeah.
I mean, I never met a person on hospice that said, oh, I knew that was going to happen. It was always,
Yeah.
how did I get here? That's how I got
Uh,
there because you did not make a lifestyle change. Your quality of life
mm,
matters by making simple changes, and they are simple.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
can
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
change you can change the quality and the way the rest of your life is going to be. Like I said, I feel better 10 years than I did 10 years ago. I cannot believe at 57 I feel better than I did at 47. It's crazy.
I love it. I agree. I agree. I feel the same way. I agree. So, okay, well, we've been on here for an hour and 20 minutes and it's
Oh,
just flown by. I can't believe it. This has
I
been
know.
wonderful. I
Thank
don't
you.
know that we have any live viewers right now, but if you're watching this right now and I just don't see the number, or if you're watching this as a replay and you would like more information on the change my scene here. You want more information on the system that Rachel and I are talking about, maybe you just want to know how can I change some eating habits? And you just want some examples of what maybe foods to break a fast with. That's what breakfast is, breaking your fast. It doesn't have to be as soon as your feet hit the floor first thing in the morning. It doesn't have to be on your way out the door for work. Breakfast isn't a set time. We've made it that way. We've
Well,
uh
it was commercialized that way.
yeah,
It was
that's
advertised
so
that
true.
way.
That's so true.
Breakfast is the most important meal of the day, right? That
And
was
you've
the
got to do it first thing in the
slogan.
morning. Yeah. Well, what did we and then thanks Kellogg's for that. But what did
Yeah,
we and what do we feed our kids? First thing in the morning, we make them get up at 6:30 in the morning. Their body probably still needs more sleep. It's still dark outside. We're saying, "Here, eat this bowl of cereal because you got to go to school and focus." Right?
yeah,
And I think about this. We have so many children today with ADHD, and
yeah.
just my
Mhm.
personal opinion. I'm not a medical professional, and I'm not going to say that there's a correlation, but in my experience, there is. So that's just my opinion. I believe we're waking kids up at 6:30 in the morning, feeding them a bowl of breakfast, a Pop Tart, some donuts, some orange juice, whatever the case may be. Maybe a drive-through because we got up late. Whatever the case may be, and then they get to school and a couple hours later when they have a blood sugar crash, by then it's okay because it's 9 o'clock and we're going to have our morning snack, and then it's lunchtime and that's okay. They're going to eat their sandwich and their juice packet and their applesauce or their fruit, the gummy fruit snacks, whatever their lunch is that we pack for them because it's easy and convenient and cheap. I raised 6 kids, but I homeschooled, but I couldn't imagine box lunches for 6 kids. Um, and then an afternoon snack on the way home or when they get home, and then dinner and sometimes a bedtime snack. And then we wonder why 16 years old and 10 years old and why juvenile obesity and juvenile diabetes rates are skyrocketing. Not only that, but let me go back to the ADHD. We get them up in the morning, feed them breakfast, 9 o'clock snack, lunchtime. And every single time they've had these 3 meals before they've even gone back home for the afternoon at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And they've had 3 or 4 different blood sugar spikes and crashes throughout the day. And little Jimmy or Johnny or Susie's sitting there like this. And so the teacher calls mom and dad and says, you know what? They're kind of struggling a little bit with focus. And so the next thing we do, we talk about it with our healthcare professional, and this is what they. And I'm not saying that that's not the right course. My experience and my opinion is let's look at their foods. Let's change some foods. If they're going to have breakfast first thing in the morning, mom and dad, get up a little bit early and feed them some bacon and eggs. Give them
Yes.
something healthy that's going to fuel their body the right way. I'm not saying kids should skip meals. I think that kids need
Oh,
to eat. If you're going to pack them a snack, please give them an apple versus the fruit snacks, the gummy fruit snacks, right? Um, maybe not the best choice, but it's better than the fruit snacks. That's man made and in a lab somewhere. Let's give them healthy options for lunch. And so when we can change their eating habits and how they're eating or what types of foods they're eating, could we see a decrease in some of these ADHD um, statistics? I personally believe so. I think that we're doing it to them with the foods and how often they're eating. So many blood sugar spikes, crashes, blood sugar spikes, crashes. They can't focus. They go on medication. That makes things worse, especially long term. And we're doing it, and
I
that hurts my
agree.
heart. We're doing it to them, and
Yeah.
we're the ones that are supposed to be responsible for raising them. Um, and we could make changes for them and completely change the trajectory of their health. We
Well, and
could.
not just that, but we talk about the sugar that's in that. They're eating dessert for breakfast essentially, but the
Yeah.
food dyes that are in those products
Oh,
too, and
yeah.
then they're
Yeah.
sent off to school, expected to sit there and be quiet and try to focus. I
Yeah.
mean, when you really, really think about it, and I am guilty of this because
Yeah,
back in
me
the
too.
day, I had no awareness of it. You can't change it if you're not aware of it, right?
Right.
But
Right.
we understand when you realize, like you said, the sugar spikes, ridiculous sugar spike.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
said, if you just gave them some eggs or made egg muffins that you could heat up quick, right? It doesn't even have to be something you're preparing that morning if you don't have time.
Right.
So make some egg muffins and throw them in the fridge and heat them up. There are other ways that you can do a healthier option versus that bowl of cereal and whatever it is that they're putting on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Rachel, this has been wonderful. I'm so
Oh,
glad that you were able to find some time to fit me in. I appreciate always your outlook, your opinions, your experience, and what you bring to the table. I love hearing the story of your mom and Ed and yourself
oh,
as well. Those stories never
me
get
too.
old to me, honestly. And so I appreciate you doing this. Is there anything that you wanted to add before we bring this to a close?
Well, I just want to say, Becky, same. And just seeing your journey and how far you've come is just absolutely incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. And I think the big message that I would like to leave with is nothing changes unless you make the change. You have to want it. You have to want to realize that it's going to impact your quality of life. And even though you can't see where that's headed down the road,
Right.
trust me, it's
Yeah.
going to impact you and you're going to wish you can make a change, but it's never too late. My mother was 76 years old when she started on this.
Love
I
that.
never in a million years thought that a 76-year-old woman could have the results years and years, right, of damage, if you will,
Yeah, absolutely.
and is thriving today in ways that we would have never seen.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
Okay, well, thank you. If you're watching this
thank
as a
you.
replay and you want maybe some suggestions, reach out to one of us. If you have some questions, neither one of us, I certainly can't because I am not in the medical community. Rachel cannot diagnose or give medical advice, but
Absolutely not.
she would love to help answer some questions and give maybe some opinions and some direction. And she will always tell you to consult with your physician as
Yes.
well. But if you're watching this as a replay and maybe you want more information on the system that we're talking about that has had such a huge impact, not only in our lives, but I've been doing this for 3.5 years. Rachel, you've been doing this for going
Almost
on
two and a
three,
half. Two
two
and
and
a
a half.
half.
Okay.
Yeah.
And both have been helping a lot of people um, not necessarily get off of this
No.
as a goal. But if that goes away because there's no need to medicate anymore, wouldn't that be a plus? If you had to, dang it, go buy smaller clothes
Right.
because that's just a side effect, dang it.
Yeah.
But the point really is just getting our health back on track because I just don't think that that's the focus as much as it needs to be through lifestyle changes, like Rachel has said, within our doctor's offices. unfortunately. So if you have questions, reach out to one of us, and we would just love to help you. That's why we're doing this. So,
That's right.
Rachel, again, thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
being here. I appreciate. Is that a turkey in the backyard?
Probably I have them. Yeah, there's 3 turkeys out there.
Pets or wild?
No, wild. Yeah, they were here earlier and they're
Oh, I
back.
love
So
it. I was watching the hummingbird feeder. And I thought, oh, I wonder if I just missed a hummingbird. And then I saw something. We had 2 pet turkeys, right? So I'm
oh,
I'm a duck mom. I'm a duck mom. I have 7
me
ducks,
too.
but one
Oh
of them
wow.
had some inflammation in a knee joint, and it doesn't function the way her other leg does. And so the 2 turkeys that we had as pets, I had to find new homes for because they would just kind of pick on her. And
Right.
I was afraid that when it got to be wintertime here and they were all cooped up in a barn, what would happen. So, but it
Yeah.
makes it, I do kind of miss them. They're entertaining. Do they ever come up and see you? Do they
No,
steer clear?
if I went out there, they'd run away. Yeah.
Really?
But it's funny, we have chickens and a duck also, and sometimes they'll go over there and like, or the
Yeah.
chickens will all be lined up, like checking them out. It's just funny.
My 2 turkeys lived with the ducks. Like they all got
Oh,
housed together. They all ate together. But yeah,
too
anyway,
funny.
a little bit of an rabbit trail there. But anyway, thank you,
Yeah.
Rachel. I appreciate your
Thank
time.
you.
Love you as always. And
Yes. Mm.
we hope that this message helps at least one person, because that's
Yeah.
that's why we do this. We're on a mission, and we hope that it's helping you. So, all right. Thank you, dear. We'll
Thank you.
talk to you soon. All right. Have a good
Bye.